The battle over Bosnia, wave after wave of NATO attacks, and the Bosnian Serbs fire back, shooting down a French fighter bomber. The new drug combination that could reignite the debate over abortion in this country. And a Texas judge touches off a storm by ordering an Hispanic woman to speak to her daughter in English only.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. Dan is off tonight. I'm Harry Smith. U.S. and allied forces launched a new wave of bombers tonight, and there is no end in sight to the full-scale assault against Serbian forces in Bosnia. It is meant to retaliate for the mortar shell that killed 37 people in Sarajevo Monday, but there is much more to it than that. President Clinton kept a low profile at his vacation retreat, and David Martin has the story now from the Pentagon.
Beginning before dawn and continuing through the day, American planes led wave after wave of NATO airstrikes against Serb targets throughout Bosnia. Backed up by artillery fire from the British and French, the bombing campaign was designed not just to retaliate for the Marketplace massacre, but to permanently tip the balance of power against the Serbs.
Their quest for a greater Serbia is over. It is finished. The tide of the war has turned against them. It has fundamentally turned against them during the last 12 hours.
The Serbs fought back, and one plane, a French Mirage, was shot down, crashing into Serb-held territory with its missiles still intact. 2 parachutes were seen, and the Serbs claim they've captured the crew. American aircraft have flown most of the more than 200 missions so far, and the commander of the carrier task force says he can keep it up indefinitely.
We've been at it since last midnight, and as you might be able to hear in the background, continuing to launch jets overhead, and we'll press on as long as we're asked to do so.
The UN says the bombing will continue until the Serb commander meets the following demands.
Withdraw all his heavy weapons from the 20-kilometer exclusion zone around Sarajevo, accept a cessation of hostilities, and desist from all threats of attack against any of the remaining United Nations proclaimed safe areas.
The scores of targets hit include ammo dumps, fuel depots, command posts, air defense centers, radio relay stations, and heavy weapons. In short, the guts of the Bosnian Serb military.
We have preliminary indications that a substantial number of targets were damaged, heavily in many cases.
In a telephone interview with 60 Minutes this afternoon, Bosnian Serb leader Karadzic admitted his military has suffered serious damage, but otherwise sounded defiant.
And this is something that is going to be a black spot in the history of NATO countries, and a black spot in the conscience of the international community.
This is the largest air campaign ever launched by NATO, and it's about to get larger. The U.S. is sending additional support aircraft so the warplanes can keep up their round-the-clock bombing. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
President Clinton kept a low profile at his vacation retreat today, saying only that the strikes were something that had to be done. But as correspondent Bill Plant reports tonight, the military action is a foreign policy gamble, and the risks for the president are high. Bill?
Harry, the president is on the last day of his Wyoming vacation, and he is deliberately not saying very much about the situation in Bosnia. He's waiting for an assessment from NATO of the effectiveness of the strikes, and more important, he's waiting to find out if new reports that the Bosnian Serbs are willing to talk peace are true. The administration was quite encouraged today when Assistant Secretary of State Richard Holbrooke was welcomed by the Belgrade Serbs in Belgrade to discuss the U.S. peace initiative, and also by the fact that the Serb leader, Radovan Karadzic, told CBS News 60 Minutes correspondent Mike Wallace that he wants to negotiate one-on-one with U.S. envoy Richard Holbrooke. So the president is deliberately keeping his distance from the military operation. He points out that this is a joint NATO-UN effort, that it is not a unilateral U.S. action. As such, he took very little part in planning the mission, and he won't really get involved unless and until, aides say, the peace process really begins to take off. Now, all of this should come as no surprise. The administration would like to have it both ways, to keep a safe distance from the military action and the possibility of U.S. casualties, but to be ready to step in quickly and take the credit